Welcome back, everyone. This is Jack Greenstock. This is another episode of Growing with My Fellow Growers. I'm here joined, as always, by an amazing panel. And I'm going to first mute myself on YouTube and then kick it off to Spartan Grown. How's it going, Spartan?
Sorry, you caught me trying to catch up with chat. I'm Spartan Grown. I'm doing pretty good. You catch me on Instagram, Spartan Grown, all one word. And if you're not into social media, you can shoot me an email, spartangrown@gmail.com. I like to include my email now for people who don't like Instagram. But those are the only two that I'm going to keep up with. I'm not going to try much more than that. So there you go. Those two places.
Now you know where to find him. That is Spartan Grown. Welcome. Thank you again, as always, for your time. Next up, Brandon Rust. Brandon?
My name is Brandon Rust. You can find my social media at Rust Brandon on Instagram, and you can find a link to my company Bokashi Earthworks, as well as some of the facilities that I own and operate, and some of the places I consult with, and all that good stuff.
Thank you so much for joining us. We always appreciate your time. I know you're a busy guy, and just finished watching you, like I mentioned pre-show, on the Future Cannabis Project. That was a great one. But next up, I'm going to pass it over to Aaron the Grower.
Yep, I am Aaron the Grower, ATG Acres on Instagram and on YouTube. Actually, it's like ATG Acres Aaron the Grower on YouTube, just because I don't know how to name things and I'm not technologically inclined. Yeah, let's see. Oh, I do have something that I have coming up here that among a million other things, working on this New Year's Eve party that I want everybody in the panel to show up to at some point. I'll send you guys the link. We're going to do it on Spartan's Homies channel on the Michigan Bros Grow Show. And that's where it'll be hosted. So I really looking forward to that. And that's about it. And trimming some weed today.
Good stuff, as always. My wife just finished trimming 2 plants, and we've got a third one coming down here soon, so you won't see that on my camera. But welcome, Aaron, as always. Look forward to your New Year's party, and want to give a big cheers and shout out to the Michigan Bros Grow Show. They're good guys over there. Spartan will be joining them later this evening, and I think everybody else should as well after the show finishes up, because they start right when we finish, and it works out great just like that. Next up, I want to give Matthew Gates an opportunity to introduce himself.
Yeah, hey everyone, this is Matthew Gates, Integrated Pest Management Specialist. You can find most of my content on 2 places, Instagram and YouTube for the most part. YouTube channel Zenthanol, which is the same account that I'm talking to you all in the chat, and also on Instagram at SyncAngel, and also on Twitter, I suppose, too, at SyncAngel. So like Spartan, I'm also not trying to be every single place, but as many places as I can that I think would be good. And yeah, you can find information about pests and diseases and various other problems with plants. And I just made a video about broad mites on cannabis, some observational footage, because a lot of people ask me what they look like. And although it's easy to get people microscopic photos and that sort of a thing, that's not really what you see in the field necessarily. So I wanted to make that information available for people.
That's a great point. Definitely a great point. I've always enjoyed your content and appreciate that you continue to put it out. So thank you again for joining us. And next up, we have the American one.
Hello, Jack, and everybody on panel and everyone in chat. It's good to be here. I'm the American one on YouTube and the American one _with _Keens on Instagram. And I love talking about cannabis and learning about how to grow it better. And I'm glad to be here.
We're glad, as always, to have you. Welcome back. Appreciate your time, as I do everybody else. Next up, we have Noah the Grower.
How's it going, everybody? Yeah, I'm going to be pulling down a couple plants, so I'll probably go into my flower room and pull a couple down here on the camera. Last half hour of the show. Yeah, I know the Grower with 2 E's from Instagram. If you have any questions about what I got going on, want to check out what I got going on, you can check out my Instagram page there. And how's everybody doing? Merry late Christmas, and happy to be here.
Happy Merry belated Christmas to you as well, Noah. Happy to be here also. It's a good time. Whenever I'm with this crew, I always enjoy your company and knowledge, and it'll be a fun time to watch you chopping down that plant. But last and certainly not least, we have Dr. MJ.
Hey, yeah, thanks, guys. Merry Christmas to everyone. I hope everybody had a nice holiday, as nice as you could under quarantine. We are getting all geared up for the New Year's Grow Challenge. Starts in like 4 days now or something. So we're dropping seeds, cutting clones on January 1st. We have a big giveaway just the first week of the New Year's Grow Challenge, just for like starting in the New Year's Grow Challenge. We got prizes from MyGrow, from AC Infinity, from Mars, from Growcast. Throwing in a bunch of Cocoa for Cannabis t-shirts too. So everybody should sign up for the New Year's Grow Challenge, cocoforcannabis.com/challenge. And yeah, it's fun to be here. I've been pushing myself pretty hard, so I'm going to take these 2 hours and just sort of be like my break for a little while.
It'd be a nice
Well-
taking it easy, fun conversation. Go ahead, Tao. Didn't mean to cut you off there.
I was gonna say, before you get too comfortable, Doctor, I'm signed up. Is there like gonna be a live where everybody is like gathers to either drop beans or anything like that? Or
Yeah, I was thinking about that. So it's when the ball drops on the East Coast. So it's 9 p.m. out here on the West Coast for us on New Year's Eve. But we try to do sort of the global coordination of it for those that sort of want to be coordinated. We'll hang out in our chat room. I usually don't. I've been toying with the idea of going live on my YouTube channel. I'm just about out of the weeds with some issues that I had with my YouTube channel. But I'd prefer not to sort of get back into them right away either. So we'll see. I want to do more sort of live stuff. That's a good idea. I like the idea.
I definitely think it's respectful and understandable that you don't want to get back into their bad graces when you first start putting content back out, if you ever were in that space. So I understand that. And I think a fun or easy topic to talk about this evening would be with the New Year's Grow Challenge. You mentioned off air a little bit some of the different categories. Unlike the previous one that focused more on plant training, I believe this is more focused on the different strains and varieties. So maybe you could start off a little bit with that, and we could go talk a little bit about strains to start the night.
Yeah. So we always think about ways to sort of group people together for the challenges. And for this one, we created like a strain menu. So there's 6 different groups. The dessert group, the dessert group is shaping up to be the most popular group, to be honest with you. Then there's the fruit salad group. I'm thinking about joining the fruit salad group. I just always love to grow blueberry. There's the color diet group for anything with sort of colors in the name or colorful strains. The global group or the global cuisine that for landrace strains or strains with different place names. I might also join that, and I might grow Kyle's New England Rock Candy again, just because I have like 3 nugs of it left, and it's been one of my more favorite smokes over the last year. And then we have the potluck group if you have a different kind of food that doesn't fall into one of those other categories. And then we always have misfits for people that want to grow something entirely different.
That sounds like a fun one. Does anybody have something coming down the pipe that might line up with one of those categories?
Yeah, what group are you guys in? I know a few people are growing Brandon's Limerilla in the fruit salad group, or different crosses. I've seen people talking about that.
I think I would be in the fruit group because I've most recently popped my Velvet Punch, which has like a grapiness to it. But I've also did Sangria, which is supposed to be like grapey wine. I guess there's some green apple phenos of it. I don't know what I've got yet because it's just about to go in flower in a week or two. But Spartan Grown, what is you were just talking a little bit pre-show about things that you're going to be popping next. So you said it sounded like you have some Irie genetics coming down the pipe.
Yeah, so I mean, I have new genetics in clone form in the garden, and I also have some seedlings that I've just that have popped that are sitting still in veg. And behind that, the next thing I'm going to pop is going to be Irie Genetics Orange Gasm. So there's going to be some orange terps in the garden, and then but I've also got a clone that's actually just rooted called Triangle Shine that is also kind of an orange kind of terps. So I'm going to have a little bit of orange terps in there. Behind that Orange Gasm, I'm going to run down. I have 3 different packs from Brandon Rust for his different genetics. So a lot of those are the BX. I'm going to run through all those, and then I'm not really sure what's going on behind that. I'm sure I'll have a million things that I want to run behind that. I'm running some autos. I've got some called Tire Fire. They're testers. They're not even, you can't even get them yet, from Morningstar Seed Company. 3 of those. I took a picture of it. I haven't put it on Instagram yet. I'll probably maybe do that tonight or tomorrow.
I like those terps. Tire Fire, like burnt rubber terps, is one that usually gets me a pretty strong high, and it's a very distinctive nose. So people that haven't come across that, it's pretty unique, and to come out of an auto would be pretty cool, because I know you grow them in your mother tent, which is like, I've always thought a great idea. So cheers to that.
And I'm really eyeballing 2020. They're coming out with, I think it's the beginning of the year or something, an auto Durban Poison, which really intrigues me to be able, I mean, I'd have to smoke it to see, but it intrigues me to be able to have a Durban Poison. They said this one's a 90 days, 91 days, something like that. That would be pretty damn cool if you can get Durban in 90, 91 days.
They're also doing another free the seed giveaway kind of thing at the beginning of the year or end of the year.
This time because they're autos.
Yeah, so it's an auto flower, auto race.
I've never really had good success growing an auto that shaped up to be like the photo period strain that I wanted it to be like. So I sort of hesitate with that, Spartan. I think the auto Durban Poison, it might be good, but it's sort of always going to be a little bit different, I think.
I would direct you to Humboldt Seeds because, or at least Humboldt Seed Organization, their Bubba Kush and OG Kush autos were the first two that I was like, holy shit, that smokes just like OG Kush, and that just smokes like Bubba Kush. Like, I wouldn't have thought it was an auto unless my buddy who grew it told me. You know, it was that good. And I'm an OG Kush kind of snob. I live out here on the West Coast. We have a lot of good OG. Had a lot of good Bubba for a while. It's not as prevalent now, but still around if you know the right people. And yeah,
and imagine turnkey Bubba Kush or any of the other sorts of cultivars like with autos. That'd be pretty awesome. I'm pretty sure if it hasn't already happened, like it's gonna be a major competitor, I think, in cannabis cultivation.
I mean, I think we're getting close. There are definitely, I mentioned earlier, I don't know if it was on the show another one. I had some, it was just labeled 3 Bears OG, and it was a concentrate, but I got it at a dispensary. My wife works at a medical delivery service, and it didn't say autoflower or anything, and it was great. It smoked amazing. She picked it herself, actually, and she didn't know. I told her, I was like, that's an auto. That's from Miss Mephistos, and I only knew because the name was so distinct. But a lot of the stuff that is grown in Northern California at this point, they're doing, instead of light depping, they'll run a greenhouse or even just open air autoflowers, and they run most of it for concentrate, but some of it is sold as flower and made pre-rolls. And I definitely think they have a place in their market. Most of the market, as much as I like hate to admit this to myself, is not a connoisseur. They're not going to be the person who can appreciate those finer details about a strain. Most people, like with beer, drink Bud Light. Most people drink $2 Chuck or the $10 bottle of wine or less. So the luxury craft market is something that we enjoy and appreciate, but I have to sometimes acknowledge that it's not the lion's share of the market. It's a niche, really, at the end of the day.
So. I agree, Jack. It's hard to kind of even wrap your head around the fact that even flower is not sort of the bulk of the market.
It's concentrate, right?
It depends, actually.
Going forward, it's going to be so
more so in the future, 100%.
And you know, you can cover up. I mean, for the really sort of the connoisseurs, it is really about the flower, about hash or some sort of other process from it, not just about sort of an you know, adulterated oil that they're going to sell commercially.
I can speak on it from you know, more of a commercial perspective for sure, because on my farm that I own with my partners, we are going to be running a ton of auto flowers early season, and then we're going to be rotating after they're harvested. We're going to do late season photos. That way we don't have to have, you know, 15, 20. We don't want huge, massive plants out here in Oklahoma. We want a smaller plant that is a little bit more stable, easier to control, and doesn't have like as massive bud production because of the, you know, the fluctuations in sporadic weather. But doing that, I think, is going to maximize production. And we will, and we do have, you know, our craft quality, which is coming from our mix light. But everything that we run for, most of the stuff that we run for outdoors is going to be used to be processed into things like single source solventless rosin or
Brandon.
Yes.
I have a question. When is like hail season or tornado season, and do you have to avoid it, or you just have to pray?
You know, so I've been here for about 13 months, and I haven't seen anything like. I've seen some pretty like windy weather, like whoa, this is pretty crazy, but nothing gnarly. No
All
tornadoes.
right,
But
that's
it's a
good.
possibility out where we're at, you know. Our greenhouses are rated for up to I think like 120-mile-an-hour winds, and you know,
About
so
a
we
month
took.
ago, there was an ice storm in my neck of the woods in Oklahoma that took out 2,000 electrical poles.
Oh yeah.
Amazing.
So
Wow.
our
That's rough.
greenhouses were fine when that ice storm hit out here. It did take out the power at the farm for a couple days, but there was a generator. My facility out here in Moore didn't get suffer any power loss, and fortunately, my home didn't suffer any power loss. But that's not to say that thousands and thousands of people, you know, were affected by that storm, and some people went without power for like a week out here. It was gnarly. I mean, it was instantaneous, like it was a flash freeze.
That's
Like
the
there
one you
was,
showed on IG, right?
yeah.
Dude,
I mean,
Yeah, that was crazy.
This is why it's important to know how to use a generator right here. When the grid
Generators in
fails you,
general.
you
Yeah,
better know what's going on.
energy
Yeah.
independence in whatever form that comes in. It's
So
just
late-
smarter community planning.
I'm gonna do a big pheno hunt, but they're gonna be smaller plants, so I can do more of them. And the way that we plan on doing things is we're gonna kind of row crop, similar to way that a vineyard is set up, and we're gonna have, you know, basically a side by side two plants for a row, and we're gonna just have green stakes. We're gonna have trellis, and then we have the capability to just put you know, PVC domes over these plants, because these things aren't going to be any higher than, you know, maybe 6.5 feet tall at the highest. And so we can put PVC with, just in case something crazy happens, like a hailstorm comes in before we're prepared. But the ideal situation is to find varieties that finish quickly. You know, I just think that there's a lot of ways to be able to profit, and you have to be clever, and vertical integration definitely helps out here. So, but yeah, a lot of outdoor stuff is really, you know, it's going to be processed material. I don't think we're going to be dropping a whole lot of outdoor flower on the market.
From an
I would imagine
IPM
it's-
perspective, it's certainly a very common strategy to change when your product time actually comes, when your harvest time comes, either earlier maybe in the year so that you don't get certain pathogens, or later in the year so you don't get certain like herbivores that might be like dormant during that time. So that's definitely a valid strategy. All
Yeah.
the other factors.
Noah, I know. Oh, sorry, Brandon. Go ahead.
And also from a commercial perspective, and from moving from strictly indoor, you know, one of the things from an integrated pest management perspective is that we do a lot more integrated pest management preventatives than anything. Like it's like a regular constant thing. We're always doing something in there to make sure that our plants are like not touched by anything that could possibly get in there.
Going back to the flavors and strains conversation, I know Noah, the girl, you mentioned that you have a harvest coming up soon. Do you have something new planned to replace it coming, or are you gonna just keep on running the similar clones? What's going on over there?
No, I do. I got a Do-si-do cross with Gelato 41, and I got some. That's basically the newest one I got that I just flipped into flower that I'm doing another one, but it's everything I have on my Instagram page, Overflow, G, stuff like that. Today I'm pulling down a platinum, two Do-si-dos and 2 fruit punch, and I'm gonna start it today. So, but yeah, those I run a lot of the same gear, but I do have some seeds I got from Jack. I got some seeds I got from Brandon that I'm getting ready to pheno hunt through, but I've just been kind of overwhelmed with my ankle right now. Just now starting to get through physical therapy and starting to move around a little bit better. So I'm getting ready to I was overwhelmed, but now I'm getting ready to get back on track and start doing some new stuff.
Glad to hear that the recovery is starting to move along, because I know it's never fun, but once you start getting into physical therapy and you can start gaining some of that, mobility and flexibility and moving around and being more independent again, it makes it a lot easier to work in the garden. So we hope that sooner than later. The Dosi Do Gelato, I think, is sometimes called Dosi Lotto out here.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty popular one in the market around me. And there's definitely some people that are growing it very well. It packs on a ton of resin. It's got some photogenic nugs. But it's definitely quite popular at certain spots. Aaron, the grower, I know you said that you're trimming as well. What flavors are you working on over there?
It's funny when you guys were talking about the different flavor profiles in Dr. MJ's contest. I was like, man, where do I fit in with rotten meat? I'm trimming on Sunday Driver.
Misfit.
And
Bring it to the potluck. There's a whole potluck group just for people like you.
Yeah, this definitely has that rotting meat, like just raunchy. This was grown full season with no fertilizer, and which means it really got stressed and probably needed more food. But man, every time I open the bag, it smells like something like a raccoon died in the wall.
Maybe something is wrong with it.
I honestly think
certainly not.
It might be that strain, because I had Sunday Driver and I looked at the genetics and it says like Fruity Pebbles OG crossed with something else. It's from Canorado, if I'm remembering correctly. But
I've grown this probably almost like 2 years now, I guess, and every time it's just a level of stink. It's either a little bit more on the fruity side, or if it's starved, it seems like it gets that rotting meat stench. But I have a question for you, Matt. Is there any advantage to those terps? Like, is that going to bring around like what do they call those? The there's a
necrotrophs.
Necrotrophs that go after that dead smelling terp that are gonna like maybe inhabit that space and prevent bad bugs.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't think we'll have like a Rafflesia situation where you've got like those giant rotting flowers that like attract carrion flies because they smell like rotting meat. That's that's one of the first ways I think that pollination syndrome sort of develops in plants. I don't think you'd have that problem too much. It's also possible that these kinds of things will sense things differently than we would, and so what we pick up will be sort of different. And they'll interpret that information differently too.
Are you telling me that I'm not trimming on rotting meat right now?
Well, you know what? It makes sense. I want to jump in because I just remembered the other thing in the cross. It's grape pie crossed with Fruity Pebbles OG, and that grape pie has a lot of what's called methylanthranilate. Methylanthranilate is an ester, which is really known for that really artificial grape candy smell. But when I was growing my Velvet Punch cross and the Spiked Punch cross, which are Purple Punch, they all have that kind of grapiness. When it was alive, and even sometimes in the cure, it has like a sickly, sweet, like rotting flesh smell. And if you Google methylanthranilate, that's like one of the things that makes like rotting meat smell sweet.
Like cloyingly sweet. In fact, this is actually the reason why I don't tend to like, I think I have rationalized to myself that this is maybe the reason why I don't like sweet meat. I don't tend to like sweet ham. I don't tend to like really honey baked or sugary. Certain barbecue sauces I might be different, but yeah, like cloyingly sweet plus meat makes me think it's gonna be a GI problem.
It's an acquired taste, I think, because I had some honey baked ham on Christmas, and like it was the portion of the meal that I ate the least of, and I couldn't like put my finger on why. And I was just like, I only have it so often, like it's usually like a Thanksgiving or Christmas thing only. And I don't know, I just like was more into the potatoes and green beans or whatever. But for whatever reason, I'm with you on that. It kind of is like maybe your body telling you, like, maybe when you would come across this naturally in evolution, it would probably mean that it was rotting or decaying meat. But at the point we are now, we can actually cure meats well to make it taste a certain way, just like we can cure cannabis a certain way to make it smell or taste or feel differently. Like some people like it a little bit drier. Colorado and Arizona, you get like the Colorado crunch because it's so dry there. Where here in California and Oregon, the bud seems to be a little bit stickier, more sticky. In Michigan, I've heard it's the same way, depending on where you're at. Everybody's environment's a little bit different. But speaking of Michigan, I was going to say Spartan Grown's over there. He told us what he's got going on, some Irie genetics coming down the pipe. But I guess I could pass it next to the American one because you've been quiet over there, and I don't know what you've got going on. Would you fit in any of Dr. MJ's flavor profiles in the New Year's Grow Challenge?
Yeah, I got some fruit happening for sure. I got that blueberry by Cheesequake that I did, and I've been harvesting that. There's still 5 of them in there that are still getting a little. I'm gonna let a couple of them go extra long, just to see what happens. And then I got your Velvet Punches there, right on deck. I need to upplant those into 5 gallons. And then
Did you ever find out if the fern one was a male or a female?
Not yet. I really haven't looked at them. They weren't. I mean, because when I topped them all. So that that main line is gone where it would be the quickest to show the pre-flowers. So it usually takes longer. But then I just got some other stuff that I don't even know, but I'm sure it's not going to be. I got Gorilla Glue crossed with Alien Rift that somebody made that I'm checking out, and he hit a whole bunch of things with that Alien Rift father. It was Sando Fernando Valley Kush clone that he got, that GG4 clone, and a Fire OG cut from somebody that it was like he they're all from the original people. So I'm excited to see what they do, but I'm not sure which one. I don't know. Is it a separate category? The cultivating of one main stalk, Doctor? Because that's the one I'm going to be in. I want to do one straight.
The single cola.
The one cola challenge. That's just like an add-on. So whatever group you're in, if you want to do the one cola challenge, and that is going to be. That's gonna be crazy. I mean, I knew what to expect with the solo cup party cup challenge that we just did. I really don't know what to expect for the plant that you have to cut all of the branches off and you can't top.
Yeah, I'm sure certain strains will do really, really good like that. I know it.
Yeah.
So that's why I might do it with a couple of plants just to see how they react.
So that's the rule with the one cola challenge, but you can do it with one of the plants that you're growing, like usually people join one group based on one of the strains that they're growing, and then you can do whatever else you want within that. If your one cola plant doesn't sort of fit into the same group, I don't know what I'm going to grow for that, but it's going to be more based on, I think, growth characteristics than flavor profile.
Exactly.
Yeah, no. And the rule for that, we're flipping the one cola plants on Valentine's Day. And you got to start them in January. We're letting people start late for the one cola plants, but you got to start them sometime in January. And I think one strategy is just to start them on January 31st. So you don't end up with the plant that's growing through the roof of your tent or the roof of your room.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Yeah.
Super cropping and LSD and all that stuff is totally allowed. So it'll be fun to see how people respond to that sort of
challenge.
It's actually a challenge.
I just for the first time didn't top a plant, and I harvested the first 2 of them. The third one's coming down and either tonight or tomorrow, and it was a Berry Lights, which is like 2 indicas crossed. So I flipped it at like 12 or 13 inches, and it ended up being like maybe 18 inches. Like it stayed so squat, and like I LST'd it and kind of made it like an S, and like all the little side buds caught up. So it was basically a flat topped canopy with no topping, but I was expecting a lot more stretch, and it just sort of sat there. So that might be a good one for anybody out there. Kineos Genetics has got a sale going on right now. I just saw them on Instagram. I think they're doing like $30 packs, and that Berry Lights that I just grew was killer. I saw Fada Mike grow it, and then I was like, shit, it looks really good for him. They came on fucking talking shit with Eagle and did an interview, and they seemed like really good people. So I was like, I'll give their genetics a shot, and grew it out, really enjoyed it. I just posted the seedlings for the first time because I don't post stuff while it's live. I wait till after it's harvested or whatever. So I do the updates after the grow is over and just sort of document the grow. But let's see who is next. We've got Matthew Gates. Do you have any updates on the IPM side of things going into the new year? Anything new and exciting from you?
Yeah. Well, one thing I wanted to say from the earlier conversation about terpene attraction was that I have a video, and I put it in the chat, about Hawaiian beet webworm moth, and I was just going over some of my pest primers because I want to be making a little bit more of those. I kind of stopped doing as many of those, primarily because when I do them, I go through a ton of research because I want to have the most up-to-date, comprehensive information possible. But they were attracted to linalool, for example, and that's a pretty common terpene in cannabis, for example. So it definitely happens. Various arthropods will be attracted to the scents and secondary metabolites and all that kind of stuff, in addition to like what they look like and other kinds of things. As far as IPM goes for me, though, I am working on a project where I will be describing some arthropod characteristics sort of for identification. So that'll be interesting. So right now I'm looking at my work right this moment since I mentioned it and it was already up here. So like, how to tell like centipedes from millipedes apart, how to tell like, various arthropods that you might find in plants, and just understanding that can be really useful for people, especially.
I just remembered, Matt, you and I have a video on the live on the 30th as well. So on broad mites, correct?
That's right. We'll be talking about broad mites on the 30th. So that's a good thing to shout out too.
I remember if it was
so if you have any questions about broad mites, put them in the chat. I also have a video on broad mites too recently, so it's definitely on brand.
Good stuff. I wanted to say, I think it was maybe you, Matthew, but I know that beta caryophyllene is another one that has some attractants, and then alpha and beta pinene both have interactions with different insects depending on which. I know in like pine trees, I heard this from Clackamas Coot, I didn't fact check it, but I'm assuming that it's correct that alpha and beta pinene, when they're like independent, are a terpene, but when certain pests attack certain pine trees, they work together and become turpentine, which is like a insecticidal acting thing for the tree.
That's accurate. I had a tree guy tell me that.
I believe it. Another thing that I'm working on that's sort of a personal creative work that hasn't a lot to do with IPM though, but it's kind of related because I have to use the same kind of part of my brain to figure it out is I'm working on I'm doing some world building. I haven't done that in a while for some fictional works, and one of my favorite things to do is to sort of do like theoretical physiology kind of stuff. And now one of the reasons why I hem and harp on it so much and why I'm so focused on it, because when you're making sort of like fictional things that you're trying to be realistic with, you at least have to have some sort of semblance based in reality. And so it's almost like a sort of like intellectual exercise too. In fact, I just was reading about how fleas, which for a long time I was told were derivatives of flies, are actually derivatives of scorpion flies instead. So,
dude, have you seen Alien Worlds? It sounds like you're describing that show.
That's right. Actually, if you really want a good YouTube channel, I have to get out there and say that I've been doing this longer than the channel has existed, so I'm unique. But Alien Biospheres by what's his name? Alien Biospheres, freaking Biblaridion by Blaridion. Yes, by Blaridion.
Thumbs up for that pronunciation, because there's 115 of you and there's only 30 likes, so give us that thumbs up.
Yeah, really. This guy is doing really great narrative works about what a sort of hypothetical world would look like if instead of oxygen and CO2, we had like most of the plants on the earth were like chemoautotrophs that worked with hydrogen sulfide atmosphere, and like what would all the sort of like interactions that would be, and what are some organisms we could expect. And I love that kind of stuff, so check him out.
Are you planning on doing like a nonfiction book, like a project like that, or what route do you plan on taking this? And then after that, I kind of want to check in with Spartan Grown, but it sounded like the American one had something.
Yeah, so for this, this won't be nonfiction. This will be fiction. But
fiction. Sorry, I was flip-flop.
It's okay. But basically, it's going to be it's a fictional work that I've been working on for about 10 years, or at least I started it 10 years and been working on and off. It'll probably come in the form of like a novella style sort of thing, a short story, or maybe a series of stories. But really, just like with Tolkien, it's kind of just an excuse for me to like flex my, I guess you could say, ecology muscles. Yeah, and in the same way that he really liked it for language. So, and I'm also doing it because I'm a big nerd. I manage a couple of D&D homebrews. So I have some people who are sort of experimenting with this world in an imaginary context too, so I can work out some of the bugs and then work in some of the bugs.
Sometimes creative work takes time. I like to hear that you're a decade in, you're kind of working on it when maybe it appeals most to you and when you're feeling like you're going to put in your best work. But the American one, it sounded like you had something to say.
Yeah, I just had a question. So I noticed, I saw that post that Zentinel did there on IG about the fleas. When did science figure out, or like, it's really discouraging for me that science is constantly changing names and figuring out that they were wrong. You know what I'm saying? Because that's...
You got to say something, though.
What, when you realize they were wrong?
No, you got to at least have some sort of, like, when I said that they found that the fleas were actually descendants of scorpion flies and not flies, dipterans, you know, it might sound like a really big, what can I say, change, but
it's like
they just nestled it.
Claus.
They just nestled it. Well, actually, no, because scorpion flies and flies are right next to each other. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
I think the fact that science is constantly sort of questioning itself and refining its knowledge is encouraging, not necessarily.
It's got to be good, but yeah.
I do know in the biocontrol world, some people kind of bemoan it because they're like, "Oh, we got to change the name." And well, if you guys weren't naming things like Spikel and Spidex and Spidex and like
Spidex,
and Bionema Horta, you know. All Nema, you know, the naming schema for the corporate names, I think, are even worse in some cases.
Facilis Force.
Yeah, or is it's Spidex over here, but it's Facilis Force over here, and it's, you know, Biocilus over here, and it's like, or we could just use the name until somebody decides to change it into some other taxa.
Right.
So I want to thank Spartan Grown. I think it's who's putting these in our Zoom chat over here. But one question we had was, at Cheap Home Grow, what happened to My Herbs Now Dryer? The website is gone, has been for a while, and I can't find one anywhere. Where to buy? Has anyone heard anything? There's a Instagram called Scott at My Herbs Now, and you can find them on there. I guess he's coming back soon with a new edition. From my understanding, they lost a shipment during COVID times, and their stuff was coming from China or something like that. And they tried to get it replaced, and there was a huge delay. And in that time, I guess the people he was working with like undercut him and started selling it under another name. So that's the last that I heard from it. So I guess he's trying to come back with like a 2.0. But Smot Poker says, I believe Frenchie said that terps, etc., and hash can break down contaminants like a piece of leaf or hair or something in the aging process. Does that sound correct? Personally, I do think that it sounds correct because I've made temple balls where I could see some particulate matter when I put it in the ball, and then 5 or 6 months later it was just a solid single color, like you could break into it. And I think they've done testing where the terpenes change into what they call hashishene, which is a combination of terpenes through the aging process they've only really found in hash or aged cannabis leaf. So I definitely think Frenchie has done a lot of research, and I would trust that when he says it, but there might not be a ton of science on it. I'm curious what the panel thinks, though.
They said terpenes are a solvent, so yeah, I definitely believe that for sure. Yeah.
I feel like it's plausible, and I said that as much in the chat, but I feel like which terpene and how much of it would be crucial.
Yeah, and how it was stored and sort of maintained. Things like temperature.
Crucial thing is the contaminant, it should be some of the lowest percentage. You know, it's going to be mostly THC, a lot of terpenes, and then some fats, lipids, waxes, etc. But the actual plant leaf material is going to be fairly minimal if you do like he does with a gentle wash, ice water hash, separate it, and then press it into a ball. So
but if like a hair gets in there, isn't that what the question is?
Yeah, so a hair could definitely.
I don't necessarily challenge it, but I wouldn't like depend on it. If you had a bunch of hair in your hash or something, I mean,
get those keratin terps.
No worries, it's gonna dissolve.
Yeah, nice keratin terps up in there.
That
what
hair
does it dissolve? Yeah, what does it dissolve into? And we're still smoking it. So
Yeah, that's
it's
a good
kind of
point.
a weird, but yeah. And
At least it's not physically there. Well, yeah, and that's the other thing too, because it could be a fomite for
It could, right?
pathogens and stuff. Yeah.
So
Very
Smart Poker asks in the chat again, what is the Herbs Now thing? And I fucked up when I said it earlier. It's Scott_Herbs Now on Instagram. So you could find that Scott_ER or HERBSNOW on Instagram. But I'm with you guys on not wanting to smoke hair, but I do think that there's probably other contaminants that get into hash. I try to get it into a cellophane and in a glass and seal it that way so you're not getting contaminants on it while it's been cleaned and made. So
Brandon makes good
Yeah.
hash. I'm just gonna put that out there.
Over the years, I probably smoked a Ronald McDonald's wig and hair. You know what I'm saying? Who the hell knows?
Yeah, there's a certain sort of comfort in that, right? Like just knowing that like you don't have control over it all and
And I survived.
put the glass down.
Damn it.
I also
Yeah.
did just see a product fail testing because of hair. I can't remember who it was or some podcast, but they were trying to put product into a market, and when it failed for foreign contaminants, and that foreign contaminant was just hair, and that was enough to fail the sample and get it like not legal to market.
Meanwhile, you got people brewing beer with yeast in their hair, so
That's
also
why
it's
they
a
wear
literal
hair
poison.
nets,
Yeah, that's true.
right? Should.
Clean shaven too. I mean,
So we have another question from the chat. It says, can we get through flour with, it's from C-Web, will worm castings carry me through flour when mixed in at 20% in my soil, or will I need to look into gearing more towards amendments towards flowering? So, I mean, go ahead, Aaron.
Let me jump in real quick. I think that it depends on the quality of those castings, but if they're really high quality and you know that 20% will get you through flower, but plan on re-amending come next cycle.
I feel like "get by" is the operative word in that question.
Yes.
and I would
How
say
so?
probably so.
Yes.
What if it depends on what size gallon he's got it in too? I mean,
Well, it's
And what his
20%.
definition of
Right?
get
That-
by is
that
like,
should
will the
be
plant
a,
live? Will it produce flower? Sure. Brandon
Yeah.
had a great quote on Future Cannabis Project recently where he was talking about like, sure, like, and this has happened in mine. I have way too small of pots for organics and my plants fade a little bit earlier. Do I get a harvest? Yes. Is it as much as I could if I had a larger pot? No. Is it the quality that it would have been if I had it green all the way up till like the last few weeks before it's a nest? Like, I think it would be better. There are things I can optimize. I always look at even like a run that people are telling me I killed it and the bud's great, whatever. You could always improve, in my opinion. Like a 9 out of 10 is a great run, but there's always that 1 out of 10 that you can improve on. And even if you think you had a 10 out of 10 run, there's probably something, if you re-examine all your notes and everywhere, something that you can improve on. So I just think
I
we
did
should
that
all be
with-
humble.
I did that with my black soldier fly larvae, the exited they produce. They don't produce a lot of like vermicompost like earthworms do, but I would apply that to a passion fruit plant that I had a lot, and it grew quite large. I didn't have like a control to compare it with or anything, but I thought I did pretty good. And then I also used vermicompost, or I mean the
I'll be right back.
castings. Oh, okay. As
Cheers,
well as
Brandon.
the sort of like tea, the exudate, the leachate that came out too, and I felt like it did pretty good. Definitely a lot of bioturbation activity, like I also like allowed it to have like a bit of a leaf litter kind of going on there, and I felt like that was a really interesting ecosystem, a mini ecosystem growing up there.
So, in my opinion, to answer that question, I'm going to have to ask a lot of questions first, because as much as I do love worm castings, there's so many variables and they're not the cure all for everything, especially when you're looking at nutrition alone. If you're saying that your medium doesn't have enough nutrition in it to get you through flower, because really that's what you need. Your nutrition should be in your medium already. You shouldn't be looking for worm castings as like a NPK input. It's more of a biology driver. That's really where worm castings shine. And you're driving that biology to break down the nutrition in your medium. So
Yeah,
hopefully
and
it's in your
didn't-
medium. And if it's not in your
I-
medium, I would address that with a top dress. And I would use worm casting after your top dress. So like whatever you're deficient in, if you're deficient in potassium, Maybe langbonite might be your answer. Top dress that, and then maybe a thin layer of worm castings on top of that to drive the biology to that, particular substance and start breaking it down. I would use worm castings in that way. I wouldn't be using it to really add nutrition. Use it more to drive nutrition.
Well said, dude. And
Definitely not
you
optimal. Yeah, I agree with that.
run an NPK test on worm castings and your brain will just explode. It won't make any fucking sense because this is not an NPK solution. This is a biological solution. Just right on.
So with that being said, the I think it's CWeb. Let me scroll up. Yeah, CWeb says, so how do people get through flowering with organics? What amendments do they use? And they added Spartan Grown. I know you were just touching on that a little bit. One a lot of people seem to like is gypsum because the high calcium demand. But that's Brandon mentioned earlier about front loading calcium in veg and in flour wanting more potassium. And there's a handful of amendments for potassium, but I'll pass it over to Brandon now that he's back to talk a little bit about how to get through flowering and what amendments you like to use in your soil mixes or modified growing mixes, I should say.
Sure. Kind of to touch on the previous question a little bit, I think 20% of a high quality worm casting mix would be a great start to build a soil. I don't know if you guys touched on that, along with maybe like almost 30, probably about 40% aeration. And then, your peat and amendments or cocoa and amendments, depending on which you prefer. As far as adding after that, typically if you already have earthworms in there, you shouldn't really need to add castings because they'll create castings from the amendments and anything that breaks down into that system. And typically the only time that I see recommendation of like a compost is when there needs to be like a slower release of nitrogen, but this is usually like newer composts or certain composts, and they usually break down over a certain time. You have to be careful when adding things like compost that your carbon nitrogen ratios aren't above about 1:20, because what ends up happening is you can lock out all of the nitrogen in your soil. It will actually precipitate out of the soil. So you have to be careful about, what you add into these types of systems. It's better to use mineral nutrition, in my opinion. So for flour, what we like to do is front load calcium through veg and really push calcium. You have to remember calcium also brings with it all of a lot of the other mineral nutrients into the system. We like to push that, and then around week 4, push potassium really hard. Give me 1 second, I shut my door.
Yeah, I can hear Lucky over there calling for you. It's all good. Spartan Grown, after you take that big nice puff over there on the bong, we could hear what you're smoking on. Because I just did a bong toke myself of some of the berry lights that I mentioned earlier from Kineos Genetics. What are you smoking?
Sour D from I got this from Michigan Medicated. I gotta ask her and get a hold of her and find out where exactly she got it from, but all I know is it's Sour D and I love it.
Spartan, you often talk about how much you like or how much you put a focus on the breeder, which I actually think is very admirable, since I don't think they get a lot of credit, or not just the breeder, but the cultivator too. I'm curious, not to put you on the spot here, but what are some of your favorite cultivars? And also, what about the people who cultivate them you really quite enjoyed or appreciated, especially if you could tell in the smoke itself?
Well, for example, a great example would be Primal Punch F1. The breeder is Medgrower One, who's a local breeder here in Michigan, but he's pretty famous nationwide at this point. But there's a grower in the Michigan Bros Grow Show. His name's Dankman Dan. He grows the F1. He has a pheno of it that is, I call it the Hawaiian Punch Pheno, because it tastes exactly like Hawaiian Punch to me when I smoke it in a joint. It just tastes fucking amazing. And
That sounds really attractive in the same way that like the methylphenolate sounds really attractive with that powerful artificial grape taste.
They both
Yeah.
have purple punch in the cross at some
it's
point
one
in
of-
their lineage.
it's one of those ones that, it chases the joint all the way down, so it doesn't go away, and I love that about it. And that's it was grown by Dank Van Dan, and I've smoked it from him several times, and I've grown his version from other people, and it's not the same as it is when it's from Dan. So I'm gonna have to get he did give me a cut, but it didn't survive, but so I'm gonna have to get another cut and try to get it myself and see if I can get close to that. But I really do enjoy that, and that's the first one that comes to my mind just as a local example, somebody that I know.
He's doing some amazing things with his press too lately. I mean, he got a freeze dryer. He built himself a hash room. Like his stuff looks so professional, and he's like literally
Wow.
just jumping off with it. And so shout out to Dank Man Dan. He's fucking killing it up there. I can't wait to visit Michigan so I can smoke some of your guys' shit. It looks fire.
Putting
you
that
got it.
much effort into it like that and really being comprehensive, that's a really attractive thing to hear.
Like
Yeah,
so much
he's-
that they put the freeze dryer outside the room so that the heat from the condenser doesn't go in the hash room. Like it's like cut into a wall. I love that like technique. I've seen a few different people doing it, but like, damn, it's props to those people like taking it to that level.
Yeah, he's taking it serious, like, and I appreciate it because then I don't have to. I just know somebody who does, right? It's amazing. I love it. Shout out
It is
to
a good
Dank
place
Dan.
to be. Shout out to him.
That's the beautiful thing about cannabis though with the community is like you can really kind of choose and focus on what you love and try and be the best at it that you can, and then link up with people. Like if you're not a hash maker, you can find a hash maker. If you like concentrates that use solvents, there are people out there like Fergroli who does an incredible job with them. Like maybe you have a strain that you love that doesn't wash well, so you're not going to go the solventless route. You want to maybe process it with butane or something else. And there are people that are true artists that get the ppms purged all the way out really low and make good clean product with that as well. So I am with Spartan on not having to learn every single step of the process, but as a home cultivator, sometimes it is nice to learn all the steps of the process. I personally learned how to make hash, but then realized that it's something that I don't want to do all the time, like maybe once a year, because it takes several hours to do. And instead of doing like one strain at a time, I just mix it all together because one, it's easier, but two, I actually found out I like the effect of all my strains blended in my hash versus having each individual strain separated by bag and by cultivar and things like that. So it's definitely an interesting place to be with growing, where you can do everything, but sometimes it's nice to know people that'll do it for you better and have all the equipment ready, and you can just drop it off and give a nice product back. The American one, I know it's got to be difficult over you where you're at. It's not as open over there. Have you made any hash lately?
No, it's been a while actually since I did the hash, because I basically will only use my trim, and I always put my cookies in front of the hash making. So it's more important for me to have a constant supply of cookies. But in the near future, I'm definitely was just thinking about it today, how I added some areas. So hopefully I'll be able to achieve an abundance where that can happen. And yeah, I tell everyone, there's this one video that Frenchie does, and I just press play, and then like 5 minutes, whatever, I do exactly what he does, pause it, do exactly what he does, press play again. And if you do step by step, I mean, it was like, I was just so happy the first time I did it. It was unbelievable. It was really awesome. So yeah, I encourage everyone to try and do it at least once. And then like the real people get the bug, and then they go down the big rabbit hole. But I'm trying to stay growing, my focus is on keeping the plants happy. People start off on these tangents with the presses and this and that. And yeah, that's time. And yeah, so that's where I'm at.
Yeah, that time away from the garden can definitely, some people I think have their, garden suffer a little bit, but some people manage to do it all and do it well. So it's nice to see. Like I want to shout out Solventless BNV. He's got a beautiful garden and he makes amazing hash. So there are people that definitely figure out how to manage and balance
Yeah.
it. but it's an endeavor that you have to dedicate a lot of time to, and everybody's sort of doing it differently. Like one person presses for this amount of minutes at this pressure with this much temperature, and some people think pressing flour is like a joke, and some people love flour rosin, and it's just like there's so much variability with all of it. But I'm just happy to see that there's a lot of options.
Taking it serious. He's got like a paddle, and he's not even using a washing machine. He's just stirring it by hand and shit. Like, man, that's taking it to the next level there.
Yep, a lot of people out here have been doing that for a little while, and I would say that's probably like the most artisanal hash, and probably going to be those like $100+ grams that you're seeing when it's like people are getting only a few percent return. Like on like fresh frozen sometimes is like, I don't know, 1 to 6%. A lot of people are doing like the flash dry. I know that's what Dan does personally. I think you heard the technique from Solventless BNV, where they dry it for like 3 or 5 days to let some of the chlorophyll off and a lot of the weight of the water go, and then more of the hash that you're washing, or the bud and leaf that you wash, a greater amount of that return ends up actually being product, versus if you're washing fresh frozen nugs straight from harvest, they have a lot of water weight and are a little bit more difficult to wash, I guess. So there's lots of learning to be done. I'm always trying to follow it from afar, and when I do it myself, I'm like Tao, I follow along with the Frenchie video, and it ends up with pretty close to the quality, and I think if you take care of the plants and love your plant, and Frenchie always talks about it's the farmer. It's like if you have good resin, that's where it all starts. So if we grow our plants with love and try and do our best, and then we wash it how he does, then you end up with a lot better product than when I used to do the Jorge Cervantes method, which was basically like egg beaters and just go like one long run and beat the shit out of it, and you end up with a really green, nasty product for like most of your bags, and you get like 1 or 2 bags that were like really good stuff. But come a long way since those days. And so
I'd always been interested in that. Like ever since I had seen those videos long ago, I was like, I wonder. But
you used to wear the dreadlocks with the wig.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the earlier videos that got me into like the cultivating cannabis and making hash. So I got to say props to him for making me even realize what the hell it was, because people were throwing away trim back in those days. So he called it turning it from green to gold, which really, I'm like Tao, I use mostly my trim or only small buds. I like to smoke the big flowers and good looking flower. That's what I'm growing for primarily. That's the hardest thing to find.
Go Google George Van Patten. It's the same person as Jorge Cervantes. That's his non-weed profile. So if you want his gardening information without the weed, that's that guy. Same guy.
Yep. Yeah, Jorge or George, he goes by both, depending on who he's talking to or where. But he definitely got a lot of people into cannabis cultivation, and I'm happy that he was part of the community despite a lot of some goofiness. If you watch some of the farm tours, the stuff that he'll say, it's like a little bit awkward at times when he's like repeating something that the farmer's saying, and then like he'll say the exact opposite, or he'll like just repeat it like word for word what the person just said like on video. But he's definitely one of the pioneers in the game, so got to give him credit where it's due, I guess, because like I said, he got me into hash. I didn't know about it much before then, but then I found out like Robert Connell Clark and his hashish books, which much props to him, and marijuana botany and everything else that he's done for the cannabis community. A great author. So shout out to RCC. He's an amazing dude. I think he's still alive and kicking, if I remember correctly. I've seen him give some speeches recently on YouTube, so hopefully he's doing well. Cheers to Robert Connell Clark. Another author, Dr. MJ, on the panel. How you doing over there? We've got 2 hours tonight. I don't know if you are going to be checking out early, or you said that you're just going to be hanging out, but
Yeah,
I know
I'm
you're
trying.
talking about your challenge.
I'm kind of dozing. I'm puffing on some. What the hell did I grind up here? Oh, this is Afghan cherries from Kyle from last year. Yeah, I was just
Nice.
puffing on my Afghan cherries.
So you said you maybe plan
I
to
talked to him when I was shopping for a publisher for Cocoa for Cannabis. I talked to old Van Patten, George. And
That's interesting.
he was interested a little bit. He runs a publisher that just basically publishes his own books. We didn't end up going that way, but he seemed all right. I don't know. I didn't have much of a sense of him before. I've heard things from the community about him though.
I think he and Ed Rosenthal are two of the more prolific authors in the like cannabis space early on, and I didn't even consider like reaching out to them, because one, I thought it would probably cost more money than I was willing to spend, or to, I don't know if they'd even respond to somebody as small scale as myself. I went with like the complete independent published route, just wrote the book, found a publisher, like a book printer locally, and figured out what the book costs to print and ship. And been very thankful. The pre-orders have been going really well. I've got over 70 so far. My goal was only 47, so hit that target and then some. So cheers to the community. I did like the first 10 books for $23. The second 15 were 26, and then everything after that was 31. Shipped to the U.S. It's 35 international now, but after January 7th, it'll go up to $33. But I didn't want to I could have done it cheaper, but I wanted the quality to be as high as possible. And I like got something where they do recipe books and like bartender things like that, where they get really nice, glossy, good. It's going to be something that feels good in hand. And I also did an 8.5 by 11, which is like a standard piece of paper, not like a smaller little book. So
that's the printing costs, once you start getting into that was one of the things that I talked to them about, actually, was what the cost would be to do a full color guide with pictures and all that. And I ended up deciding for that book, that wasn't sort of the important part. I wanted it to be more easily accessible, because printing costs get really high really fast. And if you are working with a publisher that's taking an overhead, you start having to charge people sort of more than I was comfortable charging for the book, right?
As long as I kept it under 42, I was like, if it's under 420, I'd be happy.
You have a totally different market though. You're really going for a book that's like good to look at, right? Like a coffee table book, a pretty book. And publishing costs on that are always going to be steeper.
Yeah, I have like 250 plus full color images and over 50 pages that are just 100% color images. And so, like you said, that drove the price up dramatically versus like a book that would be the same number of pages but be all text or primarily information with a few diagrams here and there.
I have some professional macro shots of the Gorilla Glue 4 I could send over too with that Limarilla if you want to.
Those might be a late addition, because I'm still, I could take out an old photo and edit in that photo, and I'm actually using like 90% of your photos for the Gorilla Glue, so that'll be probably replacing one of the other ones. But I'm happy that Gorilla Glue's in there. Rest in peace, Josie Wales. He was one of the legends we lost this year. That strain will forever live in my heart. A lot of people moan about the growth and how floppy it is, but as large of a producer as it is, as resinous as it is, as potent as it is, as great as it smells, as widely desired as it is, it's one of my favorite strains of all time. It's in my top 10, no doubt, because it's truly a legendary strain. It got crossed with so many freaking things. It's in everything, it seems like, at this point. So I'm happy though, because I think that it is worthy. It's one of those legendary for a reason. And hopefully if you don't like Gorilla Glue, you just didn't have the right grow of it yet, because I think there's a lot of people out there that really do a great job. Brandon included, Spartan Grown, who's in the bathroom right now. He's a Gorilla Glue grower as well, and many other people on the panel have probably grown GG4 and its variations. I'm looking forward to growing some of Brandon's original genetics with it in there, the Limarilla crosses, and so definitely going to be some cool stuff. So Brandon, what are your thoughts on Gorilla Glue? I know that you're going to be sending me some photos of it. I know we haven't talked about it in a little while.
It's again, like you just said, it's all around great variety, and it's fairly easy to grow as well. Even for a new grower, they can still get pretty decent cannabis, even if you don't grow it super well. So that was one of the good things about Gorilla Glue. I used it in the Black Lime Reserve Gorilla Glue, the Limarilla, which I'm going to probably be doing a second version of sometime next year, since I have like around 70 Black Lime Reserve F1 seeds that Mean Gene gave me, plus a bunch of other stuff.
That makes me so happy. Like, I don't know if my face could express it, and the train fucking chewing in the background might be celebrating it, but like my heart just like started beating a little bit faster to hear that you have that stock and that you linked up with him, because the original Limarilla was so fucking epic, and all the phenos and other generations you've done with it, with the feminized work and otherwise, has been really awesome. So I'm super excited to see what you find in the Black Lime Reserve, and I know that you've got the real deal GG4. You met Josie in person, have been to his place before he passed, so it's gonna be amazing to see what you come up with.
Oh, it should be pretty fun. It'll be great. I have some other really cool stuff in the big pheno hunt that we should be able to pull out of there. And then I have, some stuff that are going to be staples like the sour cheeseberry, which is a sour diesel cross. And then we took that crossed into UK cheese. I was running that for a long time, and then finally I crossed that into like a blueberry train wreck back across. And it's got a really unique terpene profile. I did a home grow. I didn't do the challenge. Somebody put it on, but I sponsored it by giving the contestants the cut. And it was really interesting to be able to compare the terpene results across multiple growers and see kind of what was prevalent. And it's really interesting to see, across the board, the rarest ones were the ones that were high in myrcene, ones that were more dominant across the board were some of the more rare terpenes that you don't see in really high amounts, like beta, or is it delta 3 carine, oceamine, transniterol, and some other things like that, as opposed to a lot of the super common ones: caryophyllene, myrcene, limonene. So it was really cool to see that, and I'd like to just be able to do stuff like that as well with some of these varieties that I pull out, so I can kind of look across the board.
I wanted to say congrats on the third place. I feel like I didn't give you enough props for placing in the, I think it was the Grower Cup over there in Oklahoma. There's a lot of people, even though it's a new market, that are growing some real fire in Oklahoma, and they showed up and grew some dank. So for you to place is awesome with the original cut that you've been working on for years. So that's really badass of you to do. And I loved hearing about those test results and everything, and definitely don't see those on the higher parts of the terpene testing in most people's cannabis. I wanted to pass it to Spartan Grown because he just got back from the bathroom. We were talking a little bit about GG4, Gorilla Glue, Original Glue. I just wanted to hear your thoughts. I know you used to have one that was called Spartan Glue that maybe was like not actually GG4, but it was given to you as maybe GG4. So
I have both. I have GG4 and I have Spartan Glue. Spartan Glue's, the quick story behind that was early on in my career, I was told it was GG4 out in the field. I took my clones and grew it out, and of course it didn't. I mean, it was very similar to GG4, but you can tell by looking at it, it's not GG4. Then I ran into MedGrower and I got the real GG4. Drew them side by side, and I 100% could tell that one was related, but it was definitely not the same. So I've seen them both. GG or Spartan Glue is more like a lemony. It's almost, I don't know. I'm half convinced that it might be a haze cross or something, like a GG4 haze cross or something, because it has like bigger kind of buds and they're a little bit more spaced out, and it brings like more lemon into the terpene profile, whereas the GG4 is more like that earthy, chocolatey pine, a little bit of pine too mixed in, and it's sturdier, right? So the GG4, the big downside for the GG4 is that she needs support, man, because she's got weak branches. Even if you silicone the shit out of her, it doesn't matter. So just support her, and I always got good yield from her. I hear people bitch about GG4 not yielding, and I just often wonder if they even have GG4, because it always was a big yielder for me.
even the crosses for me have been insane yielders. Like the best yielder I ever grew was a GG4 cross. So Noah, did you have something?
GG4 is a phenomenal yielder. Come on.
I agree.
Like crazy. I'd say it's probably towards the top of the yield spectrum if you do it right. Like it might be one of the biggest.
Dude,
That's like the problem with it, right? Is it like gets so heavy, it just boonk. It's like, can't do it anymore, Dad.
I've seen some stuff that makes GG4 yields look small, dude. I've not many, but there's some stuff out there like the old Big Bud and the Skywalker gets fucking huge. Skywalker
Critical
OG.
Mass. Have you seen Critical Mass?
Critical
Yeah.
Mass is insane.
You know what the biggest problem with the Super Skunk, like Skunk One, or like the Super Skunk or the Critical Super Skunk stuff, is they're almost just like biomass producers. So they
I
put
know.
on
It's
these, they put on
fibrous.
these
Yeah.
huge, they put on these huge flowers really fast. And the problem that I always encounter is it's not viable commercially because I can't ever get them to finish before they just start to fucking mold.
It's like it's like a 13 to 16 week sort of strain. And you're right, it puts on flowers. Just all those skunks put on flowers super fast. Then they take forever to finish. But I love those terps that it produces. Dude, I had a question for you, Brandon. Those terps that you were mentioning, I had never heard of a couple of them.
Mhm.
Can you describe them for us, like how those might smell?
Yeah, let me go ahead and bring up my feed here because I did a post on it on my Instagram not too long ago.
I think Osa means like kind
And-
of floral citrusy.
Yeah, so I don't have like a diagram with all the different terps. I know Jack has some. I do have some stuff, but I just don't have it immediately accessible. I know Jack's really into that, and he could probably help us out with some of these. But here, so one of the first tests that I posted was actually the home grower that did the highest terpene test. And it's somebody that I actually know that entered the contest that grows in a similar fashion. He uses a lot of the products from Bokashi Earthworks, the microbes, the aminos, the Agsil, the Bokashi. And you can see that the Delta 3 carrying, and the same on the second test as well, was the highest, and it's actually almost 1.5% total, which is really interesting because you often don't see that terpene even very often, but then to see it in that high of amount as almost a 1.5%. And this particular flower does have like a really pungent front end, but it's not like super like floral and robust as something like maybe a lot of like the Jacks. It's almost like
woody, maybe.
Yeah, it's almost like a black licorice mixed in with like a floral pine, and it kind of has like almost kind of a nose sting, kind of a back end where it's not gas, but it's a type of like kind of a pungent musk that ties all those profiles together.
It sounds
But
like opening up like your dad's old fucking pine chest in the fucking bottom of his fucking under his bed or some shit.
Yeah, so if your dad stored his like maybe old whiskey casks in a nice fragrant pine box, that was maybe in a damp basement.
So
And
And
it
I am
also
like walking
had
through
real
a-
strong licorice as well, because licorice
Dude,
is the predominant.
I'm like walking through this imagery with you. This is so nice. Please don't stop.
the floral
Well,
side,
I have another flower here that I can walk everybody through as
I
well.
want to
Do
say
it,
one thing
hit
before
us.
you go on that one is the floral is probably coming from that transneurolidol, which is found in jasmine. Jasmine is a flower that is very fragrant. If you know what jasmine smells like, that might be the floral that Brandon's picking up. But
Yeah.
that's the next one.
Okay, so for this one, oceamine was 0.66%. And then there was humulene was the third highest on this test. So I'll go over and then we had myrcene, camphorine, terpinolene, and
Bisabolol.
bisabolol. And then there was also geranol, and that was the last one on that test.
That's in like geraniums and stuff. So that's
Yeah. And then this one kind of had similar. It's a little bit different. The second terpene is different than on the first test, but it's same carine. This one, then the second terpene was actually limonene, and then humulene, and then camphoryne, and then transniterol, myrcene, bubicidol, or whatever. There's a one here that I haven't never even seen, the isopugol, puligol. But again, on this test, the carine was 1.7% of the total terpene content in this flower, which is pretty rare.
Well, for people who don't know, 0.1 can be a lot in terpenes. Like the terpinolene that you mentioned, I don't know what it tests at, but I bet you can smell that terpinolene because it's there. That terpinolene is like what's in that jack. It's like got that sharp,
The terpinolene on this is 0.24.
So you're definitely going to smell it.
Yeah. And then, there's just across the board, it's really similar. Like if you're looking at them, some of them are in slightly different orders, but again, it camphoryne, terpinolene, ocyamine, humulene, the geranol, and the terpinolene. Those are real in the carine. Those are like the dominant terpenes. Some of them are arranged in a different order, but those are dominant terpenes for those profiles. So I really do like to find things that are a little different, because I can compare all these different varieties by my nose and then look to see but I have another one too. This is so this particular variety is called Y87. It was found in a hunt, but we lost the genetic tag, and I just went with the designation from the Farmer Freeman sex test. And the first digit was Y, and the last two numbers were 87. So that's what I went with this. And it's really nice because it's got an onset of this really nice, sweet, floral citrus pine, very similar to the Jack Herer, but it has an overall more musky sour, like the sour OG Kush, or like a really, really good sour diesel.
The interesting thing about terpinolene is some people smell it as fruity, but it's related to alpha and beta pinene. It's part of the terpinene family. And yeah, so there's the terpene experience is very different because we could all smell that same bud and pick up something different off of it. And one of the things you're talking about, camphene, is found in cypress oils. So if you ever had a cypress essential oil that has predominantly camphene. So I think that's some of the easiest ways for people to, maybe if they haven't smelled that cannabis before, is to recognize what other essential oils or flowers or plants that they might be recognizing it, like limonene or limonene that you mentioned earlier. Most people know that one from any citrus, whether it's lime, lemon, orange, those all have amounts of limonene. But then things like other things like valencine will make it be like more like an orange. So
I would love to see a type of like kit, right? Almost like a sensory kit where it has 40 different, 50 different terpenes, and they come with cards like this is what this is dominant in almonds, and this is what this is. And you can so it can help you like maybe define and refine flavors and help you define the different, refine your flavor palettes for all the different combinations, because I got to smoke some of these other people's flower that were, and they're similar to what I have, but I have stuff that's a little different too, just even on different runs. So
I want to say what you were just talking about though. There's like Interpening is trying to do that with like making cannabis sommeliers, and there's a few other groups, the Ganjier, Kevin from Wonderland Nursery, Kevin Jodry, is trying to make like a Ganjier, which is like a sommelier certificate. But I want to shout out a guy named GMF, Genetic Memory Farms. He came on fucking talking shit with Eagle, and he was a beer tester. So like he like keeps his identity hidden and everything, because in the beer testing they'll send like specific samples of like isoamyl acetate, which is like one of the smells for banana. And I found that's actually produced by cannabis, and it's found in banana and used for banana artificial flavoring. But if you could isolate and smell that, you'd be able to say like, oh, this is what banana smells like, or the chemical that is found in cannabis that smells like banana will smell like this. And it's also what's used for banana runts, like the actual candy, and things like that. So when you smell like, oh, this actually smells like grape Kool-Aid, well, that's methylanthanolate. It's the same thing. It's like once you learn those esters, and I hope someday, like Brandon's talking about, that we'll have kits available where you can just pull out a card. Number 23 is methylanthanolate, and there's a picture of a grape on there. It says found in Concord grapes, also used in this and that, and it can be found in Lang Langs and a bunch of different plants. So it's really an interesting concept.
Let me ask you this question, Jack. I'm sure the viewers would be interested too. Where is the best source of information to find on plant esters and their alcohols and glycis, all the different other chemical constituents that aren't terpenes and cannabinoids, because we do know that
So
they do play a big
Take a
role in,
biochemistry course at your local university? Probably.
that. Yeah. So for me though, I would say I don't advocate that people spend high dollar to go to university when they can self-educate. I've been self-educated. My degree is in psychology. Everything I know about terpenes, esters, minor cannabinoids, flavonoids, ketones, aldehydes, all the other things that are found in cannabis that make it smell, taste, and feel great when you use it are things that I've done personal research on Google, whether it's Google Scholar.
You have
or
a degree in psychology too?
I do. Undergrad. I was working on my master's, but
Such a waste of time, right? No, I started my PhD, terminal PhD program, and I quit 6 months in. But that's so funny. I didn't know we had that in common.
I also quit 6 months in. So hey, cheers to dropping out of college, or grad school, I should say, and following your heart and doing what you love.
Yep.
A psychology degree, undergrad. My dad, before he passed, used to joke, an undergrad psychology degree and $3 will get you a cup of coffee.
That's it. Fucking worthless.
So,
Just
but
as a college professor, I'd push back a little bit, or maybe just remind you that I'm here.
no. I actually,
I'll
say this. I do agree that people that get a degree make more money in their lifetime, and there's several studies that will agree with
There's
that.
there's many fulfilling things about getting a PhD too, and especially if it's something that you're passionate about. And I think that don't let Jack take that away from you, but at the same time,
I think education's great, but I just wanted to say it's not necessary
just
for
was
everyone.
an eye roll moment for me with the whole I don't advocate going to college. I was like, oh, boy.
It's a great networking opportunity.
I just say I don't think everyone has to go to college.
No,
They benefit me greatly.
to understand terpenes. I think was the like don't go to get a biochemistry degree just because you want to learn more about terpenes, or maybe do. I don't know.
That was kind of my point, but at the same time, I will just
I'm just joking too. I mean, I'm not upset.
That is
or
why I
something.
want
I'm
to go
just
to
joking
college,
with
is
you.
to learn about the
Actually,
biochemistry.
that's a good point.
terpenoid.
I mean,
I
you
think
want
it's
somebody
still a
passionate.
valuable resource for sure. But
Everything I
just-
did in college, I was like, how can I relate this back to growing weed? And that's how I became interested.
I mean, that was everyone
That's
in my
how I
botany
was,
course,
too.
definitely.
And yeah, that's how I was in agriculture. How am I gonna, one of these days? And everybody was always make fun of me. 14,
My
15
undergrad
years old.
botany
One of these
teacher-
days, guys.
My undergrad botany teacher sounded like Seth Rogen, and no offense to the man, but he looked a little bit disheveled a lot. But I really loved him because he would answer everyone's questions, and he would be in on jokes, and a lot of jokes were about cannabis cultivation, people like relating it to it. He was super easygoing in that way, and I think that man, I really miss him now that you guys made me think about him. But
You could have said that way faster just by saying he was a weed guy.
he was. I mean, I don't know if he was. I honestly, I think
he was. He was.
maybe.
suspect that he was a weed guy. Like any ceramics teacher, if you ever took ceramics,
Oh yeah, right.
my teacher would come in and play like, "Where are my car keys and where's my coffee?" That was like her first and second period like class game, because she was very clearly a stoner. But like a lot of
Dude,
people didn't realize that at the time.
My ceramics teacher had Rasta paintings all over the wall and Bob Marley silhouettes. And
My ceramics teacher in high school was definitely a surfer bro. So basically, yeah. In San Diego,
Not the
of course.
stereotype. But,
shout out everyone's ceramics high school teacher.
Yes.
even in fucking Ohio, which is like surprising. But hey, art is attractive to people that enjoy
Wanna
and
get
vibe in
high?
cannabis.
Yep.
We want to get high. It's funny.
Just want to get high and draw, man.
And
I
they
just
can
wanna
I'm gonna
say-
be.
into a smoke.
I just cleared
Nice.
out my grow tent. I'm chopping down a project that I'm going to be utilizing for the springtime, but I hit a bunch of stuff, old stuff with some Mac V2 and then the Limarilla F2 that I have. And so I'm going to be resetting my tent with some cool stuff here pretty soon. Should be pretty interesting. Some new flavors that I made.
Like New Year's soon, Brandon?
Yep.
There we go.
I love making seeds for the simple fact of I get a fuck ton of keef from that run. I do 1 seed run per year. Like I took the Velvet Punch to F2 last year. I'm taking it to F3 this year. And I'm also doing like another cross along the way. I'm crossing it to Sangria this year, but next year the F3 will cross to Donny Burger and a few other things. But when you get those buds, like I pollinate the whole entire crop in my tent, and when we go to trim it, we'll sort of dry sift it after, or before picking out the buds, and it seems to just dump resin. So we get stocked up for the whole year on dry sift for the bowls to be topped with, and
Jack,
doesn't feel like waste. Go ahead, Tao.
I do the same thing with I have done it a couple, many times, just like that dry sift. I was wondering though, I was wondering if we could possibly do a water hash run with seeded weed and then extract the seed and dry them out before they
It fucks your
germinate.
germ rates. I know people who've tried to sell. They would wash the hash and then they would sell the seeds after, and they get really, really shitty, like, or no germ rate, and it's a really shady
Okay.
process. Don't do it. Don't suggest it. I know of people that have tried,
That's
unless somebody
why
wants to come out and say they advocate for it. But when you put a seed in water, it wants to start living. It wants
It
to start
wants to start
germinating.
growing, yeah. And then once it started, it can't stop that process, I believe. Most seeds anyway.
Even if it doesn't pop, it uses a little bit of its like mojo, its
Yep.
juju inside that seed in that process. But go
Yeah.
ahead, Spartan.
Yeah, I was just.
Yeah, if it gets too saturated, there's sort of both chemical and physical things that happen with germination. So yeah, it can absolutely ruin seeds to get them wet and then dry them out again. But they can survive a little bit. I mean, it depends on how wet they got.
Ice water hash run is like not suggested for like my number one tip to keep seeds better. Like,
Yeah,
I wouldn't
or
suggest that to
then
anyone.
just either maybe germ them quickly if they're already
There's-
wet,
Yeah,
or
maybe.
keep them for yourself. But I agree, the act of selling those seeds would be very shady.
Oh, that would be crazy. But there's
Send them to your tester
incidences-
in paper towels, so when they get there, they're popped, and it's like you gotta fucking grow them now. I've
Yeah,
heard
there
people
you
think about
go.
doing that.
Right.
Like hot potato germination.
There's instances where the seeds actually started growing on the plant. I've personally seen the pictures, and it never happened to me, but I've seen it on 4 different plants. So that's a thing.
I wonder if it's like outdoor seeded when it starts to rain. It gets a little bit of
Oh,
like
yeah, it's
moisture
always
in that
outdoor
bud, and it's
plant.
like pew,
Yeah.
shooting out of taproot. I've seen them fall out of the plant and then germinate in the pot if they get mature enough in the plant while it's
Yep,
still growing.
yep.
I definitely advocate. I know a lot of people don't advocate people making their own seeds because they're like want to preserve some gene pool or something. But if you like stuff, I think you should play around with it. Like you don't have to sell it to a market, but I think making seeds is one of the more enjoyable parts of growing cannabis for me at least, and being able to share them and see other people grow them. Like Spartan Grown has a 4x4 of some stuff that I made, even though I just F2'd it. It was my buddy's work. Shout out to Doja DNA for making the F1s that I F2'd. Oh shit, Noah the grower. Killer looking over there. Those are some stacked up plants. What are we looking at?
We're looking at some fruit punch right here. This is some do-si-dos. My caregiver did a lot of the starting, so it stretched a little bit. But yep, this is what we got going on right here, right now. I'm pulling down this hood right here tonight.
Nice, man. I'm just spotlighting your video right now, so everybody should be able to see it. It looks like even though it maybe overstretched a little bit, you're going to have a pretty solid yield out of that room. There's a lot of buds and big
Yeah.
plants.
Yeah, here this is a GG4 plant right here. Just this right here, that's just one. I started that about a month ago now. It's like day 30, day 31. There's 2 right there. 2 right there. This one got a little bit of a nitrogen deficiency. It's like, but here, this is some platinum right here. Really, really, really good platinum.
That one's
And,
frosty.
I'm gonna take some pictures of all this stuff and put it on Instagram. And I'll even say something on there about this is the stuff that I was, pulling down on the YouTube stream on Cheap Home Grow. And yeah, Tal was saying something earlier there, man, it is all about growing, I mean, and I'm the same way. I put so much time and effort into it. And sometimes I feel like I'm overdoing it and putting too much time. And I'm such a nerd for all this, and to be with you guys and everybody that is also into that stuff, it's an honor, really, and I love it. I mean, I live, breathe, sleep, eat this, and I mean, I'm not on like Brandon's level yet, but give me a few more years, and I'll be on a decent level for myself, and I just love it. Whether or not it's for everybody, man, it's for me. That's all I know.
Hey, yeah, man, it's definitely not a competition, but you're putting out some
Yeah,
killer
for sure.
work yourself. Whenever I talk about HPS buds and like the glory days, you're one of those guys I know who's still growing with them. And to see a bud that's that frosty, I tell people all the time, I still think to this day in 2020, some of the best looking buds are grown under HPS. They get that really dense golf ball-esque, like just super resin coated fan leaves. And if you keep your environment right, like you do, you keep it in the right ranges, that the plants are super happy and they produce incredible quality. So
My heart just warms seeing that yellow glow, man. I haven't seen that in so long, and it's like, yes, those are the OG vibes right there.
Yeah, I'm old school. I'm gonna switch over to LEDs one of these years, but it's tough to put a lot of money into it when you got money and you're getting good results. And
when you do talk to Dr. MJ, man, he's got some killer light reviews, and he can definitely recommend you a good light, because these new LEDs, I will say, as somebody who's using them, and I loved my HPS back when I used to grow with them, and I loved my CMH when I grew with those, but when I switched to LED, I will say I have never looked back, and I'm extremely happy with the quality that we're able to produce under modern LEDs. I will say for a while, some of the earlier ones were questionable in quality comparison to an HPS. And I don't know, even if you got the same amount per watt or like similar, it might not have been worth converting over. But now I think it's so far in the LED's favor. When people can afford to, it definitely makes a lot of sense to switch, and you'll reap a lot of reward if you do it properly.
One of the issues with and it still is an issue with LEDs in the home grow market, is that the manufacturers oversell their lights to such an extent that growers believe them and then underlighting their grow space and growing sort of weak, spindly looking plants. It's not because of the LED light as much as it's because the way the LED lights are marketed, sometimes it leads growers to be underlit. And then have sort of inferior results. But I think that that's a sort of a big factor in a lot of people's biases about LEDs and home grow.
Kind of find the opposite. Well, at least the people that come to me with issues, the issue tends to be that they're putting a light that's way too intense. They're not used to the intensity of an LED, so they're almost overlighting the issue is what I find to be common.
Do you think that people
what
have
kind of
issues?
LEDs?
Various. I mean, I'm just saying people will go from HPS and throw an LED in there and they just slam it, within 12
Well,
inches.
yeah, if you're hanging it too close to the crop. Most of the LEDs are especially a lot of like the new bar array designs, they're hard to put in too small of a space because they are sort of the size.
Well, you guys are talking about two different things. Somebody who's just getting into growing and buys LED for the first time, they're going to go off the manufacturer's recommendations. A guy who's been growing with HPS like Noah, and then switches over to LED, they're going to have Spartan's problem for sure. Yeah.
Or some people just buy too much light.
I agree. You're thinking about different audiences.
They're like, oh, look, Spartan got that new Science Raging Kush, and I'm going to get that for my grow room. And then they like try and set it up, and maybe it's just way too much. Like they're in a smaller space than he is, or they don't have the ceiling height, or what. That might be a low profile one anyway, so probably a bad example.
Yeah.
But I see a lot of people get like HLGs, for example, the quantum boards. Those put out a fuck ton of light, probably more so than the physical space that they take up. But by people's like nature, they just want to have it fit the actual space. And if they run it at full blast, just covering the space that's directly below it only, they're going to have too much wattage and too much power and too much PPFD at their canopy unless they hang it super high or dim it.
Even if you have reflective walls, even if you hang it super high, that's one of the really interesting things that I discovered in grow light testing. If you have reflective walls, you have to, I mean, if your PPFD is way too high, raising the fixture only helps until the light sort of spreads out. Once you have a lot of light everywhere, raising the fixture doesn't really lower the PPFD, and I mean, nearly as fast as you think it would, because you're only losing photons to reflective losses off the walls. They're all still making it to the canopy, and there's no sort of like lower density spots for them to fill in at a certain point. It's just there's high density light everywhere. And if you really get to that point, then you need to increase the area that light is covering. You need to allow the photons to spread out more.
I first noticed that a few years ago with cobs, and one of the things you mentioned, and I don't want to get back into the defoliation conversation, but when you take off a leaf from the top of the canopy, you said it was trading A quality light for like a B, C, and D quality light. And with cob LEDs, I noticed, because I was doing the PAR testing, I had like a meter, and I'd go from, the top of my plant to the bottom part of my plant where the bud sets would be finished. And I was actually surprised how little the drop off actually was, because they're really blasting out a shit ton of light. And I have all reflective Mylar grow tent wall. So
yeah, it's more about the all reflective Mylar grow tent wall. It's because the light spreads out according to the inverse square rule. It's just, and so normally if there's space for it to spread out into, then the further away you are from the light source, the less dense that light will be because it's spread out. But if you surround this thing with Mylar reflective walls, then all of those photons are spreading out and then bouncing back and then hitting other walls and then bouncing back and then hitting other walls and bouncing back. And in the process of that, it really fills in the evenness of the distribution, but there's no more places for those photons to go. You don't lose very many of them when they bounce off of Mylar walls. So you have to sort of hope for a lot more bounces. Essentially what you're doing at that point when you raise the fixture is you're like hoping for more bounces off the walls to get greater reflective losses to sort of lower the amount of light that arrives to the canopy. When you are underlit and you only have sort of a hot spot right in the middle, when you raise the fixture up, then those photons just spread into the less dense regions of the canopy, which is sort of what you want to be thinking about in the first place. But yeah, thinking about light, like almost like it's a physical thing, I think sometimes helps in that way. Like it's like water spraying down, or sometimes I equate it to like frosting on a cake. You know, I mean, you have so much frosting coming out of the fixture, and you have so much cake. Yeah.
It's like Can Grow used to say it was kind of like raindrops. And if you think of like how much is going to fill up that shot glass, the more intense part is going to be raining a lot harder in that spot, and it can overflow like the plant or whatever, And I'm happy to see most of the engineering going into providing a more uniform spread of light, because what I've seen is when you get that uniformity across the canopy, the plants are just so happy when you don't have a singular hot spot and then like decent areas all around. Like if you can get it to all mostly good, it's even better than if you have like one spot at the very highest, like 1,000, and then the rest of the spots at like 400 to 700 or something. I'd rather have them all be 600 to 800 and be consistent. Or
I
just
agree.
like 700 all the way across.
Having that evenness, having not a big distribution and big drop off from the center to the edge, that's one of the things that I'm talking to manufacturers when they ask me my advice is aim for that sort of even distribution of high density light all across the canopy, and target sort of grow sizes that people actually use. Think about a 2x2 or a 3x3 or 4x4 or 4x2. And think about trying to really bathe that whole area with high density light in an efficient way. That's what MyGrow did with his new light. I'm excited to test the Geek light. Was designed with that concept of sort of spreading out the bars. I'm going to be testing a new Chill LED that they're really excited about. They won't tell me much about it at this point though, but I think it's also going to be sort of along those same lines. And really that's the direction that you see in the top of the LED market. All the big OEMs are switching over to those style of fixtures now, the big bars.
Was the Geek Light the Geek Beast that Migros
Yeah,
done
it's
some
the new
testing on?
one, the Geek Beast, like Mega or something. He's got 2 new models. They're en route from China to me right now. There's a bigger one and then a mini. But the mini, I think, is like for a 4x4 tent. So we'll see.
It's
They
got the
did great in
best.
Shane's test, so I was excited to get that and test it out.
I've never seen one with a better PPFD map, and maybe you could inform me if there is a better one out there, but I haven't seen one with like that high of numbers. It was like a pure yellow, like
You know,
brick
I
all
haven't
the way
seen it.
across.
To be honest with you, I'm a little frustrated. I haven't seen a map on the Geek Light that conforms to my protocol yet, where the maximum PPFD is not over 1,000. So I'm interested to see sort of where it will be at that point. Another little inside baseball thing is it's going to be a pain in the butt to test, according to my protocol, because I'm going to have to search the whole canopy for the hotspot and keep adjusting the hanging height. I set the hanging height based on the highest PPFD. Usually it's like somewhere close to the middle, but I actually think on the Geek, because of the way they distribute the diodes, it's going to be out towards one of the corners. It's an interesting concept. I'm excited to play around and see what they've done with that. When I met with Growers Choice, I was actually talking to them about that. And I'm like, why does everybody space their bars evenly? And then you see the PAR map, which spacing them evenly produces a hotspot in the center. So why not spread them out more, give more space between the bars in the middle of the fixture and have them closer together at the edge? There's sort of an odd efficiency trade-off there, because what you're doing is you're stacking light up against the edge of the tent, which means you're accepting greater reflective losses, but you're doing it to sort of fill in the distribution as well as possible. So it's cool. I'm excited to test that. I'm really excited to test this chill LED too, mainly because they won't tell me what it's all about, but we'll see.
They make some good stuff for sure. I know a lot of growers that are happy with it. It can be on the pricier side. I'm just happy to see all of the prices coming down and all of the engineering kind of going up. They're all sort of getting the more efficient diodes. The prices are coming down sort of across the board, especially if you can get a Black Friday deal, it seems like, or use like a Cocoa Cannabis discount code. He's got some of those for
check out our Grow Like God. Yeah, thanks for that. I'm going to be testing the Maxxis on little MF series fixtures, which are one of these great deals for really good sort of equipment. I was impressed with what they've done with that. It's going to make me sort of point out some other things to think about, which is like number of diodes, not just brand of diodes. Everybody gets caught up with the Samsung LM301s. The Maxxis and MF series runs the 281B pluses, but they put a lot more diodes than any of the competing fixtures, and they end up being more efficient for that reason. And they're going to have a longer longevity because they're running them at a lower wattage. So there's more to it than just sort of, there's some other brands that just want to put the 301Bs and they're putting like 50 of them in there. You know, it's like not nearly enough, but they just want to put that LM301B thing on their product page. So be aware of some of those things as well.
Number of diodes. I think that's where a lot of the people that are making clones of the quantum board, they'll even call it a quantum board, but that's like a HLG trademark or patent, whatever.
It's not. That's actually not a protected name. Quantum board is the style.
Actually,
printed circuit board is, I thought.
And they have it they're patent protected, and they're pursuing people for it.
But that being said, what I noticed mainly from what I'll call like the HLG and the HLG clones is I'll look at it and I literally count the diodes per board, and they always have way more. So when you're like looking at those 301Bs, and then the one that you'll get on Alibaba that says this is a HLG 550 V2R spec, you know, replacement or whatever it is, you'll just be able to see that it has less diodes. And what I was going to say also is, like Dr. MJ was saying, sometimes it's better to get one that has maybe for cost and efficiency, like Timber Grow Lights, they don't use the 301B, even though they just released a new bar style light. Build-A-Soil is using their LED in their most recent side-by-side grows, and it's not LM301B. It's like LM365H or something. You know, it's a different diode, but they use a hefty amount of them. And he did PAR testing like live on one of his videos and showed even when he had it all the way up at the top, pretty far deep down in the canopy, the readings were still really, really good. So I'm with Doc. I think that there's a lot more to it than just the diode, and looking at the testing and knowing the size of your grow space and not being under or overlit is very important. But with that said, I want to give Spartan Grown a chance to give his final shout outs and thoughts because he's got about 15 minutes left before he has to go over to Michigan Bros Grow Show.
Yeah, I just want to shout out chat coming in. I really do like to see the same names coming in every single week. It always puts a smile on my face to see the same people, and not only on this show, but on all the shows that I'm in, I'll see the same people. So that's really cool to see. Shout out to the diehards in chat for sure. First and foremost, shout out to everybody on the panel. I always love coming out here, learning, and just talking shop. It's just one of those fun things. So thanks for that. Thanks, Jack, for hosting it. I look forward to your book in the mail. And Growers Love, we'll do this again next week.
Thank you so much, Spartan Grown. You can find him on Instagram at Spartan Grown or email him at spartangrown at gmail.com, I believe he said at the beginning. And you can also find his work at Mitten Canico on Instagram. They're doing some really amazing stuff in Michigan. They've got me excited to visit Michigan whenever that is possible for me again in the hopefully in near future. But does anybody have final thoughts or topics that they want to get into before we do our sign outs in the next about 10 minutes?
I'll say earlier, you guys were talking about a Spartan was talking about a Gorilla Glue plant that he had. I had a Gorilla Glue plant back in the day, like when it first was like getting popular. I did the exact same thing. I did a side by side with the Gorilla Glue 4 I had, and the Gorilla Glue that he told me it was a Gorilla Glue 1 cut, and it grew completely different. It had almost all that stuff he was talking about. It was a heavy yielder, but it was just not quite as good at trichome production. And then I also used to have a really awesome Hawaiian haze plant. I'll have to put some old school pictures from my computer in our direct chat, like some old school stuff. Just monster buds, some of the biggest buds I ever grew. And I got a clone of some LA Confidential, and I got mites on it. And I've been down that road, and I just I had to let it go. I had to just clean the whole room and start over again. I knew better. These were like some really bad mites, and I knew that the guy he most likely was spraying, and they're probably immune to most stuff that was not that was organic. So I just let it go. So. But there is some really cool stuff that's in Gorilla Glue that's not just Gorilla Glue 4. I've seen it, so.
For sure, and definitely I got to shout out Haze because that's one of the strains in 50 strains of green, and it can be a massive producer. Haze and the many crosses of variations, Super Silver Haze, Mango Haze, and many of the like NL5 Haze. Brandon just did a cross with that in there. It can definitely be a huge producer, tend to be a little bit longer on the flowering side, but they can be massive. And one of the things Spartan was talking about with the Spartan Glue that kind of triggered in my head was maybe it was like an S1, like a selfed Gorilla Glue, like somebody got a bag of Gorilla Glue and there was a seed in there, and then they grew that seed out and they said this is Spartan Glue now because it sounds like it had some of the characteristics, but sometimes when a plant selfs, it might be similar to the parent, but very often it's showing a lot of the descendant lineage. And I know that there's like chocolate trip in Gorilla Glue in its earlier lineage, so maybe there was some like Thai or some other traits that we're expressing there that made it a little bit different than the actual GG4 cut.
Dude, I had 3 different phenos of what people call GG4, and they were all different. The first one I got was the legit one. It was back in like I ran that for years, and then it might actually have been before. It might have been like 13. I ran that for years, and then got these other ones, and I was like, no, these are not the same. I ran them because they had a little bit of a different terp, called them Chocolate Diesel or whatever, because I had to change the name because they're definitely not GG4. But it's one of those strains that's often been imitated and replicated, but when you get the original one, it's far and away above better than the replicates.
I agree. I made a reverse back cross off of the original cut, and I picked a pheno that was almost identical as far as terpene profile, but it didn't have that flop over. It was shorter and stockier, and it was able to support its weight. I used that also. That's going to be the last seed release that I do is the GG4 R reverse back cross times Lime 1 VX.
Very cool stuff, man. I'm looking forward to that. I have a handful of your seeds, not a handful, a few packs of the seeds that you sent my way. I'm definitely looking forward to tearing into in 2021. And I know that a few of the other members of the panel are also looking forward to growing those out. The American one, do you have any thoughts about Gorilla Glue? I don't know if I've heard you talk on it too much. Have you grown that yet? GG4? Or
No,
anything similar?
actually, but I have the first cross that that's what I was saying earlier. The GG4, you said, he got the cut from Josie, cross with an alien Rift fodder that he picked out in like F5 somewhere or something like that. So I'm eager to see what that looks like, tastes like, and feels like. But yeah, like you were saying, being where I'm at, and being the person I am, I don't get much of all the hype strains and stuff. And I was just chatting up with someone today. I'm like, I'm going to send you out a whole bunch of samples. And, since you have access to everything, kind of like judge what I'm smoking on. And then,
I wonder if plant packers could be used to ship plants.
I wonder, perhaps someone has a product.
At least plants.
Yeah.
I need a bunch of those actually.
Dude, I got these slaps for him, so check it out. Now it's official.
Legit.
Get like a 6-pack.
Let's do it, man. I'll hook you up.
All right.
Give you a couple
I'll
for
hit you up
free.
later.
Yeah,
You gotta remind me. I'm always so goddamn busy out
Well,
here.
you're gonna get reminded when I need to get some seeds.
Yeah.
Well, I
Well,
was
I've got
thinking
plenty.
more
Are
like
you
a
coming out
spice
here?
wrap.
Yeah, I'll be out there in like a month and a half. I'll hit you up. We'll
right.
kick it.
Brandon, why does the Microbe Plus smell so good? It's like, I want to drink it. It's like apple juice.
I'll tell you why. Okay, so one of the reasons that you smell all that goodness is because the bacteria that you're smelling, it's fermentive yeast, the type that you would like smell in beer, but also you have that non-purple sulfur bacteria and then that bacillus, but also the carrier substrate. It used to be molasses. It's in water, right? All the molasses has all been converted to microbial biomass, and it just has this kind of like sweet fermented, like it's not like a bad bacteria. It just, I don't know, it just smells good. And it's the most amazing. Like I will never not use that in my gardens, no matter if I'm at home, on commercial level, at my indoor facilities, outdoor, everything.
It's my favorite product I've gotten from you. I definitely use that and the Amino N Plus the most, but that one is like, I don't want to overdo it. I know it's probably like best like once or twice a week to be adding in, but I love how it smells so much, and like one shot per gallon of water just makes it really simple, and my plants seem to love it. So I'm going to keep on charging on with it, especially now going into the earth boxes. It's like a sub-irrigated planter, and I guess it has some.
You're gonna crush it in those things. Okay, so one of the benefits of that is they're flocculative anaerobes, so you don't need an oxidized system. You can have that anaerobic system at the bottom, and the bacteria will basically make it so that no pathogens grow, and they'll still be able to cycle nutrients in the soil system above it.
I'm seeing Eagle Gardens doing it with his side-by-side. He's doing earth boxes against his cocoa with like orange moss, and his earth boxes are crushing it using Smiley Gardens like modified Coots mix, and they're using your Micro Plus for the bottom, and they're so
Check
healthy.
out
I believe they used.
So crazy.
I believe that. I think they used, because I sent him Bokashi. I think I sent him a whole setup of everything.
He's got everything. They're using the Amino N Plus once a week. He's got the Micro Plus, and they're doing a full earth box setup. But he's like, his whole thing was, he used to say, well, I can't keep up with my patient demand if I switched from synthetics to organics, because he was using like super soil where he had to cook it, and he'd always get behind on the cooking. But I think he's realizing if you can just do like an earth box and like replant and reamend just a little bit each run, it can be as quick, because his plants are growing just as fast and just as big, and they're actually bigger than his cocoa ones.
Yeah, shout out Smiley. He converted him. I think he's going to be full organic after this.
I think he's moving towards
I
it.
love
for
that.
sure.
I love, and it's just that product does all the things that like Mammoth Microbe does, right? It helps. It produces those phosphorus reduction compounds that help release them from minerals that are tied up. But it has all these other benefits, and it increases other beneficial microbe populations in the soil system itself. So
I gotta throw this out there. Sungrown 707 said he thinks the green bicycles, which is like a third one, he did like a week later, another orange a set of 2 plants that were both orange boss and the side by side were the tallest, but I don't think they had the thickest stalk or the most biomass, but they're also looking amazing, just water only. So shout out to Pat from Green Bicycles, GREAN, and Sungrown 707. He's a great dude. He's in our chat often. I want to kick it over to Dr. MJ to give his final sign outs. We've got about 5 minutes here before Michigan Bros Grow Show.
Hey, yeah, guys, it was a fun episode today. I got to talk about lights, and I got to talk about the New Year's Grow Challenge and all sorts of fun stuff like that. Sign up for the New Year's Grow Challenge. We're starting on New Year's Day on midnight when the ball drops in Times Square, if they're still doing that this year. And we're going to do a cool giveaway the first week. I got a MyGrow light sort of headlining that. It's a fun community. We got 380 people signed up right now, and I think that's going to well top 450 by the time we get going.
And trying to make sure these businesses stay afloat. But then
I don't know who that's coming from.
Where is that?
it's like getting some weird transmission, I think, in my headphones somehow.
Oh, it's coming from Brandon. Sorry.
That does happen sometimes. Sometimes speakers pick up transmissions like that.
From Mars.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
You can go ahead and
I'll keep
finish up
going.
here.
I was like, is that just in my head, or does everybody else hear that too? I'm gonna keep trying to talk, but like,
I know what you mean.
I thought it was coming from
guys,
your end.
come grow with us in the New Year's Grow Challenge. There's nothing to it. You just have to sign up and then like grow plants and occasionally tell us about them. Yeah, look for some cool videos. I've got a dozen fixtures in queue right now. I'm gonna do a Maxis on video this week, Geek Light next week, the Chill LED, Medic Grow, Agro Light, MyGrow, Photon Tech, bunch of people lined up, so that's gonna be fun. And growers love everyone. Happy New Year. If you're not gonna drop seeds with us and celebrate, have a wonderful time. Stay safe. And thanks, Jack. Thanks, panel. Thanks, chat.
Thank you, Doc. And I just want to echo that sentiment. Brandon showing us probably what we were hearing over there. But if you're going to be consuming alcohol or intoxicated on the New Year's, please do not drink or use whatever and drive. Be safe. I think a lot of Ubers, Lyfts, and things like that, although you might have to wear a mask during these times, will be a lot safer for you if you are going out. Most people are probably going to stay at home. But if you're visiting a friend or doing anything just not at your home, please travel responsibly. It's definitely a fun time of year. It's been a weird year. Looking forward to 2021, hopefully being much better. But I'll pass it next to Matthew Gates for his final thoughts and shout out.
I agree with Spartan. Many times we have agreed in the same way. The chat is really great, and I love seeing all the different people who are on every week. It's very endearing to sort of make these sort of relationships, and I just really appreciate the interactions and good comments. If you want to find integrated pest management information, if you have issues, you can find me on my website, zenthanol.com. You can also contact me on YouTube as well as on Instagram at SyncAngel, and my YouTube channel is Zenthanol. And me and Aaron will be talking about broad mites on the 30th on Instagram. So if you have an Instagram, you can be in the live stream and we'll take some comments and questions.
Looking forward to that. It's always helpful information. I think more people should get into IPM. If you're not like already obsessed with it, if you haven't gone through at least like a few rabbit holes and like figured out what the common cannabis pests are in your area, I highly suggest that anybody familiarize yourself with it before you need to be familiar with it, because otherwise you're going to be fighting from behind, and that is not the way to do it. If you can catch it early, if you can identify it early, it makes things so much cheaper, easier, and just better to be dealt with. Next up, Noah the Grower.
Yeah, I had a great time today. Got my timer set there now so I can go live a little bit at the end of the show. And now that my ankle's getting a little bit better, I'll be getting better results in there and stuff. Yeah, and I just I even videoed it on the live stream. I took a couple of pictures. I already put one up on my Instagram, and if anybody's got any questions about growing, I try and help everybody out I can. And yeah, I had a great time with everybody. Brandon, I'm going to have to get some of that microbial stuff. I make my own like little batch, but I've been curious. I've seen some Instagram posts and I'm very curious, and I'm definitely down to buy some of that, and always support anybody here. And all you guys are all awesome growers. I want you all to know that. And I'm glad to be here and proud of all you guys.
Thanks so much, Noah. And I'll say this not to sound too corny or like a sellout, but my only regret with anything Bokashi Earthworks was not buying it sooner. I was like, damn, why the fuck did I wait so long? And once I got it, I was super happy. So Brandon, expect another order from me in the coming months for sure, because I'm a very big fan and sold on that product. With my soil, it just makes things work a lot better than they were, and it was already working well. So hard to go wrong with that. With that being said, Brandon, you could give your final thought and shout out, unless you already did. I'm a little
Yeah,
spacey
I
over
appreciate everybody that comes here every week, and it's always fun to get on here and talk about weed, and all that good stuff. You can find my company Bokashi Earthworks on Instagram. You can check out my website bokashiearthworks.com, where you can order the products, microbes, a couple other things. Sometimes I do seed drops there on occasion. And if you want to follow along with everything I'm doing, whether it be home grow to the different facilities that I consult with, or the farm that I own, 2021 is going to be even crazier, even bigger, more pheno hunts, more seed pops, a lot of marketing, a lot of branding, a lot of just cannabis stuff. So tune in. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I'm looking forward to it. I've got a big 2021 planned myself, and I think for a lot of people it'll be easier to have a better 2021 than 2020. But if you had a good one, keep taking that momentum forward into 2021. Next up, Aaron the Grower.
Thanks, Jack, and thanks, panel. I had a lot of fun watching the chat tonight. I couldn't participate too much, but I really enjoy everyone coming back. I share something with the panel. I love and appreciate everyone in the chat, man. That said, I am super excited about my live show on the Michigan Bros Grow Show on New Year's Eve. It's going to start at 10 o'clock West Coast time, so midnight East Coast time. We're going to do a ball drop style party. So if you don't get a link from me, feel free to shoot me a message if you want to be on the show. This goes to the chat too. If you feel like you have nothing to do and you want to kick it with us on New Year's Eve, send me a message and we'll send you the link. And I am also very excited about my chat with Matt on the 30th. So a couple big things coming up. I appreciate everybody's time, and grower love. Thanks, guys.
Cheers to that. I love the COVID-friendly way of partying online for New Year's. We could all get on in front of the camera and smoke bongs or joints or blunts, whatever you're into, together, or not consume anything at all and just come hang out. A lot of people are separated from family or don't necessarily communicate with or have a large family. And this is all like the online cannabis family. Eagles show has really done a great job with that 24-hour Thanksgiving and 24-hour Christmas and 24-hour 420 this year. I think I've really seen a lot of the community gather up over there. And even here every Sunday, we see, like the other panelists have mentioned, a lot of the same names that we're seeing in all the different shows and are coming back every single night. So really thankful for all of you here. I mean, there was over 150 of you, and I kept on jokingly like saying thumbs up, because X amount of people actually hit the thumbs up, but it's not what we're all about. We're actually just here to inform you and entertain you and have a good time with everybody. And I really enjoy the chat interaction every week, and I want to pass it next to the American one.
All right, Jack, everyone on the panel, it's always good following you guys on the other socials. We got Jack with the book, Brandon Russ with the second greenhouse, Aaron the Grower making the sick fucking extracts. Oh, excuse my French. Dr. MJ with the Cocoa Challenge, and Zentanol just constantly pumping out interesting information across the boards, from detail of pests, and then the flippant fleas aren't really flies, they're soldier flies or whatever. It's all crazy, but shout out to all you guys. Awesome. And chat, I wish I wasn't there all night tonight, but you guys know I'm always loving you on you. And yeah, if we don't get to see a Happy New Year, go stop in with Aaron the grower on New Year's Eve and get the seeds ready for Dr. MJ Coco's New Year's Eve Grow Challenge. Yeah, bam.
Damn, Tal, look at you rattle that off. I think you might be the new host here. Shit, that was fucking beautiful. We just got to get Tal to start showing his face on this show over here sometimes. That'd be show the people. People want to see the Tal. But if you want to, you can go check out that Halloween episode of Fucking Talking Shit with Eagle. With that being said, I mentioned earlier I'm at Jack Greenstock. Sometimes it works. Oh yeah, look at that off frame. You can actually see my logo. But only one place I'm Jack_Greenstock, and that is Twitter. I tried to not spend too much time on the phone, but I do learn a lot, so I look at it as a double-edged sword. And a lot of the science communication that happens on Twitter is great. A lot of the community interaction that happens on Instagram is awesome. But with that being said, thank you all so much for joining us. You know who I am. Hit me up in the DM or email at jackgreenstock or jackgreenstock47@gmail.com if you're interested in a pre-order. But otherwise, look forward to seeing everybody next week.
Hold
Thank you
on.
all for joining us. What's up?
Hold on. One last thing. Noah the grower with his freaking Coca-Cola sized buds. I forgot to add that one in there.
Thanks, man.
Can't forget Noah, man. He's really putting out some chunks, and I definitely gotta say you gotta check out Noah's Instagram because some of the frostiest buds that I've seen on all of Instagram. So cheers to you, Noah, representing for the OGs, still rocking the HBS and killing it. I've always got a place in my heart for that.
All I gotta say is thank God you weren't named Aaron, otherwise I'd be screwed.
Yeah, can you imagine if we had two Aaron the Growers?
Yeah,
Aaron the
I wouldn't be
Grower
doing
and
very
Aaron the Grower.
Fuck.
All right, guys. Have a great rest of your weekend. Go enjoy the Michigan Bros Grow Show or check out Candid with Canada Queen and have a great rest of your night.